I'd refer you to the Department of Defense to speak more specifically.
We're not likely to see an influx of lethal weapons, let's say, to the rebels in Aleppo, are we?
No.
Thank you.
Actually, I just want to, on that subject.
Yep.
So a few days ago, you were asked about MANPADS and the authority that the latest Defense Authorization Act gives to the president to send those MANPADS to the rebels, and
Correct.
you said, and I quote, I mean, we've been very clear that we're not going to provide lethal assistance to the opposition in Syria, end quote. How does this waiver the president just ordered square with what you said a few days ago? Are you surprised?
So, no. First of all, our position regarding MANPADS hasn't changed. What I said the other day still holds. We don't want to see that kind of weaponry. Let me finish. We don't want to see that kind of weaponry getting into Syria. In terms of more broadly speaking, I was referring specifically to the moderate opposition. Now, we have worked with, and I'm not going to speak beyond what I just said to Saeed, but we have provided some level of assistance to the Syrian Democratic Forces that are fighting in northern Syria against Daesh. That's on top of the advice and training that we provided these groups. And the reason we've done that is that they've been highly effective in going after and destroying Daesh on the battlefield in northern Syria. I'm not going to speak to the level of our assistance beyond that. What I was referring to the other day, specifically to your question, was about moderate opposition who are fighting the regime in Aleppo, but elsewhere.
But this quote, it's not quite accurate, right? Then when you're saying,
I think I just clarified.
We've been very clear that we're not going to provide lethal assistance.
I said I think I just clarified.
Clarify. Okay. With this waiver, who is going to get those weapons? What groups? In what locations?
I'm not going to speak to that. I said you can, either of you can go to DOD, ask them for more details. Generally speaking, I can say we're talking about partner forces that we're working with in northern Syria.
Yeah, go ahead.
A few
more. So the president said with this waiver that it is in U.S. National security interest to provide weapons to Syrian rebels, and I assume that it is also in U.S. national security interest to make sure that these weapons don't end up in the hands of criminals and terrorists. Can the administration guarantee that?
So, of course, it's in, and again, we've talked about this at great length. One of the reasons we are taking these actions against Daesh is because it's in our national security interest to do so. Look, the threat that Daesh poses for the region is very real and urgent. The coalition that this country led in forming has done more to turn the tide against Daesh than any effort that, by the way, Russia or any other effort by the regime in Syria has attempted or alleged to attempt in and around Aleppo and elsewhere when they said they've been going after ISIL. We stand by our record. We have put ISIL or Daesh under tremendous pressure wherever it holds territory. It's lost much of the territory, hasn't made any territorial gains in the past year and a half, and that pressure is going to continue. Now, how we've done this is by working with local groups on the ground, a variety of them in northern Syria, and they've been effective, as I said, at dislodging Daesh. Now, with respect to your question, the assistance that we provide to these groups is obviously done under careful monitoring, but of course, I'm never going to be able to say on any given battlefield, and we've talked about this before, that equipment, assistance can't change hands, but we haven't seen it recently, and in fact, to the contrary, as ISIL has lost territory, as it's been on the run, we've not seen any examples of that. But again, this is I guess, an area or territory where there's a variety of arms from a variety of different sources over many decades. For anyone to be able to say with complete confidence that any equipment or assistance isn't changing hands from the battlefield or wherever, is difficult to do at best.
What will happen to these weapons after the rebels fight ISIL? Who will they be turned against?
Again, I mean, look, this is all, and this is something we've been working very hard on, and this is the last question on this, working as we liberate, or these groups, frankly, the Syrian Democratic Forces liberate territory in Syria. We work to bring and provide stability back into these cities, work with local governments, local councils to reestablish stability in these areas. We're also working with these groups, and this is something that our special envoy Brett McGurk is in constant contact with many of these groups, as well as with Turkish authorities and others in the region on what comes next, and that's something we're looking at down the road. But the immediate priority here is defeating Daesh, and like I said, we wish that other foreign actors in Syria had those same aims.
What about, is it only against
I've answered
Daesh
your questions.
or
Please, go ahead.
Misra as well?
I've answered your questions.
Saudi Arabia?
Sure, go ahead.